Hi, so this is my appendicular skeleton bone video for the lab. So to start off, we're going to explain what the pectoral girdle is and the pelvic girdle. So up here, this is actually the pectoral girdle right over in here. What it does is it's where the upper limbs attach to the axial skeleton. It's so you can see it's actually made of this clavicle and the scapula, which is right here. And then our pelvic girdle is down here, and this is where the lower limbs attach to the axial skeleton, and it is made up of the sacrum and the hip bones, which would be over in here. So that's the pelvic girdle. To start off, we're going to move into our pectoral girdle and explain about the clavicle. So as I said, the clavicle is here, and this is the sternal end, and this is the acromion end. Moving on to our scapula, we have our coracoid process right here, and this right back here, this flat surface, is the subscapular fossa. Right over in here, there's underneath the arm, if you can see, where the humerus is actually kind of located, that is the glenoid cavity. On the back of the scapula, we have this part right here is the spine. We have our acromion right here, our supraspinatus fossa right up here above the spine, and our infraspinatus fossa below the spine. We have our sternoclavicular joint right here, which is where the clavicle connects to the sternum, and our acromial clavicular joint, which is where the clavicle and the acromion joint. So moving on to the arm, we have our humerus, which is this bone right here. This is the head of the humerus right over here. We have our greater tubercle, our lesser tubercle, our deltoid tuberosity right here, our medial epicondyle, and our lateral epicondyle. We have our coronoid fossa right here, which is where the coronoid process from the ulna goes. We have our capitulum right here, which articulates with the radius, and our trochlea right here, which articulates with the ulna. And on the back, we have our olecranon fossa right here, which is where the olecranon from the ulna would go. Moving on to the forearm portion, we have our ulna right here and our radius here. So on the ulna, on the back, we have our olecranon here and our coronoid process right here. We have our styloid process right back here. On the radius, which is this one, we have the head of the radius here, our radial tuberosity right in here at this part, and our styloid process right here. Moving on to the carpus portion, we are going to be going over our carpals. So we have our scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, and our pisiform. We have the trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. So the bones that form the wrist joint and what they articulate within the forearm, we have our scaphoid and our lunate, which articulate with our radius, and we have our triquetral and the pisiform that articulate with the ulna. We also have our trapezium that articulates with the first metacarpal, and that helps form the pollex, which is our thumbs. And over here are our metacarpals, and above that are our phalangeals. So we have our first metacarpal, second metacarpal, third metacarpal, fourth metacarpal, and fifth metacarpal. And above that we have all our phalangeals. On the thumb we have our proximal and our distal phalangeal, while the rest of our fingers we have proximal, middle, and distal phalangeal. Moving on to the pelvic girdle, we're going to be talking about our coxal bones. So we first have our acetabulum, which is right here where the head of the femur is actually going to be located right in here. We have our pubic symphysis right here, and our obturator foramen right here. Our iliac crest up here, and our anterior superior iliac spine, and our iliac fossa. On the back, we have our greater sciatic notch right here, our ischial spine right here, and the ischial tuberosity right down here. Now we have our femur part. I took the leg off of my skeletons to make this a little easier. So we have the head of the femur right here. We have the greater trochanter up here, the lesser trochanter over here. We have the adductor tubercle, which will be right about here, with our medial epicondyle and our lateral epicondyle. On the back, we have our medial condyle and our lateral condyle. And this right here is our patella. Now we have our tibia, which has the medial and lateral condyles. We have our tibial tuberosity right here. We have the medial malleolus down here. We have our proximal tibiofibular joint and our distal tibiofibular joint. Moving on to our fibula, which is this bone right here, we have the head of the fibula up here and the lateral malleolus right down here. Lastly, we're going to be talking about the tarsus. So here we have is our talus, which articulates with our tibia and our fibula superiorly. We have our calcaneus right down here, and then we have our cuboid right here, our navicular right up here. And then we have our lateral cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, and our medial cuneiform. These are our metatarsals right here, and they're labeled as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And these are our phalangeals. For our hallux, which is our toe, we have a proximal and a distal phalangeal, while the rest of our toes, if you can see, we have a proximal, middle, and distal phalangeal. So that's the end of my appendicular skeleton bone video, and I hope you enjoyed it.